We are ready to go, I guess, and I'm very, very happy to announce the next session, which is actually focusing on something which I find one of the most important parts in this period of time, education. And it's not only focusing on what education is, but also the effect of citizen science in education in general. And it's not only someone, she actually came all the way from Paris. It's my great pleasure to welcome on stage Elina Moraitopoulou. I hope now I got the 100%, I'm not quite sure about that. And she's actually, in my perspective, already a very international, not only international, but also interdisciplinary person, because she not only made hold her degree, diploma in biology, she's also a student in the AIRE EdTech Master Program at the Center of Research and Interdisciplinarity. Please, a warm welcome for Elina. Happy that you're here.
Thank you very much. So, good afternoon to everyone. I will manage to adapt with the microphone, I think. Thank you very much for being here. Today I would like to share with you the power of citizen science, to introduce you to what citizen science is and to its power, and also to explore with you some of the potential benefits that we could have as a society by introducing citizen science in our education, more precisely in our formal education and in our schools. But before I begin, I would like us to establish a common language by defining what is citizen science. We could say that citizen science is a different form of scientific research because it's more inclusive. We could also say that citizen science is a scientific movement because it involves people that are not trained to be professional scientists. It involves amateurs who are passionate about scientists and who can make real contributions to research, to actual scientific research. But we could also say that citizen science is a social movement because these same people, these non-professional scientists, these amateur scientists, not only learn more about science and increase their scientific literacy by being involved in actual scientific research, but most importantly, they learn how they can use the tools and methodologies of science to solve everyday problems of their communities. And these people, these non-professional scientists, these amateur scientists, are called citizen scientists. And maybe we have some of these between us here. We're not that many, but... so let's examine what citizen science is through some more concrete examples. This is the eBird project. I apologize in advance for the slides that are slightly overwhelmed with information, but I really wanted to present the size of such projects. So the eBird project was initiated by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the National Audubon Society in 2002. And what is the eBird project? It's actually an open, online, accessible to everyone database, which gathers real-time data about bird distribution and abundance in different locations worldwide. And the contributors to this database exceed the 20,000 participants, who may be recreational or professional bird watchers. Just to give an example, in May 2015, more than 9.5 million observations across the world entered this database of eBird. So the goals of a platform like eBird project is to maximize the utility and accessibility of the vast number of bird observations that happen every day worldwide, aiming to increase our understanding of the distribution and richness and uniqueness of biodiversity on our planet. This, for example, is a citizen science project. This is another example of a citizen science project, in which we have mapping of air quality in different areas around London. So it was initiated and supported by an organization called Mapping for Change, which is supported by University College London. And what they did through this organization is that they provided local communities around London, mostly in marginalized areas around London, with low-tech tools that they could use in order to map the air quality of their areas. So local residents in over 30 locations had been able to collect data about the air quality of their areas and also see real results of the monitoring of their activities. The goals, again, in this case, is to increase, of course, community engagement and action in environmental problems, local environmental problems, and also increase the awareness that comes along with policy, debate, and action. This is another example of a citizen science project. And last but not least, the Public Lab is an initiative that became very well known after the accident that happened in April 2010, in the Mexican Gulf. I don't know how many of you remember the accident of the BP oil spill in the Mexican Gulf. The disaster, the environmental disaster that followed was enormous. And the residents on the coast of the Mexican Gulf had difficulty following the size of the disaster. So what this citizen-led initiative called the Public Lab, which is also supported by a university and a non-profit organization which works on environment, what they did was that they equipped local residents along the coast of the Mexican Gulf with equipment like balloons and kites on which they attached small, tiny cameras which could take high-quality pictures from all over the Mexican Gulf. And like that, they collected millions of pictures of residents using these mapping devices, and they managed to give a whole picture, a full, complete picture of the disaster at that point, something that had not been communicated by the media until that point. And this could serve as evidence also to conduct environmental research further and policy and regulatory changes in the coming years. And this is another example also of citizen science project. Now, the big question that maybe you could ask already yourselves is who benefits in citizen science? I think we can already tell that science itself benefits in the sense that citizen science seems a rather cost-effective scientific approach in which the amount of data that is being collected by volunteers, by people that are not trained to be scientists but still can collect quality data, this amount of data could have never been reached by small or even bigger teams of researchers in that period of time. So we agree, I think, that science is being benefited through citizen science. Importantly, though, I would like us to see how society is being benefited through citizen science. We already saw some cases of transparency and raised public awareness, mostly around environmental issues in the cases that we examined. But also, it has been shown that people that get essentially involved in citizen science activities, they raise their scientific literacy, their understanding of research tools, and most importantly, how to use these tools to solve local problems of their communities. And we have also something that is being born within citizen science, which is community empowerment, collaboration, and civic engagement. As it's already been said by Simona, I have a background of studies and some short experience of research in the field of biology. And since last September, I'm attending a master's program in the Center for Interdisciplinary Research in Paris, exploring innovative educational approaches and how they can be implemented in education, in different educational contexts. Also, during last year, I have been working during 6 months in a European project which disseminates, coordinates, and supports citizen science actions and initiatives in Europe. And I've been an active member of a student-led initiative through which we collaborated with designers and teachers to develop open source material and protocols and hardware to teach science in classrooms. So we were invited somewhere in between all this background and this full of experiences, this year full of experiences, we were invited with my colleagues to do some of these experimentations on synthetic biology with some classrooms. We were invited by their teachers, who were very enthusiastic and with whom we collaborated perfectly. And we were invited as a part of their biology courses to work with them on some different experimental protocols, sometimes a bit more interactive. And we also wanted to profit from our presence there and launch a small survey with the students. So we asked them their understanding, which was their understanding about the term citizen science. And we asked them to write down keywords on small papers. And when we gathered all the papers, we found out that students had mentioned words like research for all, or collaborative research, or interdisciplinarity. Words that, if you put them all together, when we put all the words together, we could have a very good representation of what citizen science could be. So we took it a step further, and we asked students to think of some of their everyday activities, some parts of their everyday lifestyles, and how they could potentially have a negative impact on their environment. Again, we asked them to write down these activities, and in the end, we created groups of the activities under the bigger umbrella of an environmental problem. For example, we had food waste in the school canteen or at home, so non-sustainable food management or limited use of public transportation, so contribution to air pollution and so on and so forth. And then we did the question, so who do you think can solve these problems? And the answer of the students was the scientists can solve these problems. And I think that this very simple experiment that we just decided to do out of the blue revealed two major scientific and societal deficits, which is that first, science today, again, seems to be mostly about for scientists, meaning that research, scientific research and society seem to be very far from each other. People that are not trained to be scientists have difficulties in understanding what science really is, although it's everywhere in their everyday lives. And the second major societal deficit that we could detect is that school education lacks some links between the official school curriculum and real life and applications in real life. And I think that either we understand it and we realize it or not, these problems have a huge impact on the way in which we think and the way in which we act as individuals in our local and our global communities. And to this point, I would like to bring the pieces back together and to propose one potential solution. I believe that by bringing citizen science into classrooms, we can actually encounter both, we can actually start solving both these problems that we already mentioned. By bringing citizen science into classrooms, we can make science more understandable by students, not only to understand its tools and methodologies, but also how they can use these tools and methodologies in their everyday lives. And also, we can make the scientific curriculum more vivid and more related to the real life. A good question that comes next, where should we start from? There are different steps to take. And let's imagine that after this talk, one teacher, I don't know if we have any teachers between us. And which ages?
Primary education,
okay.
School, 6 to 12 years old.
Okay. So let's say that a teacher that is found between us today wants to try and take some first steps into getting to know a bit citizen science and citizen science activities and introducing some of these activities to his or her classroom. There are different places to look, but two of the most famous, let's say, platforms in the field are SkyStarter and, if I pronounce it correctly, and Zooniverse. These platforms gather thousands of citizen science activities, but also tools to use during these activities, ways to get involved, and online support. So one first step could be taken, for example, by a motivated teacher that decides to bring citizen science in his or her classroom by following one of the already existing activities. But to take it a step further, I think that we all realize that the teachers will soon need support and that there will be other issues arising during this procedure of getting students involved in something that is not part of the official school curriculum, that is more innovative, that is more explorative. Here I just wanted to cite an example of this project called Les Aventuriers, or in English we could say in free translation, the Knowledge Adventurers. It is a project that initiated and is running in the Center for Interdisciplinary Research, where I'm studying at the moment. And it has this motto that we are all born researchers, so curious and eager to understand and act. So they have different actions, but they mostly work with teachers. They provide teacher training sessions on how to, and they actually try to train the teachers to become mentors of their students on their students' genuine questions. And they try to create links also between researchers and classrooms, real researchers that do actual scientific research at the moment, and teachers and their classrooms, so as to create a link between actual research and school curriculum. So this could be a step further. It's not necessarily what we called until now citizen science, but I think it kind of reassures this critical basis in the sense of critical thinking in children, but also it brings, it kind of reassures that the scientific methodologies that will be followed can be accurate. And this is what I've already said. So, supposedly, if we could reach up until that step, after this point, students, teachers, classrooms, schools, they could initiate their own citizen science projects. I promise that these are the two last questions that I asked myself while doing this presentation. So why should a researcher care? Why should a researcher invest time, invest working time and resources to work with classrooms? It's more or less the reasons that we already saw before, that scientific research can advance rapidly if it opens to this number of students, if students that participate, that get involved in scientific research and give data to science. We could also say that, in a sense, it's part of the responsibility of a researcher to make sure that the society is scientifically literate, but we can skip this ideological part. And why should the teacher care? By bringing citizen science into classrooms, we introduce an active way of learning and teaching. And through this way of learning and teaching, students become more motivated, more interested in their subjects, and therefore more engaged, which can also lead to better performance at school. And they can also work on activities that will promote, that will solve some problems of their societies. And also we could say that teachers could profit in the sense of having a lifelong training on different topics of their interest maybe, which could also increase their enthusiasm during the teaching procedure. But okay, until this moment we saw, I think we examined citizen science more or less within the context of life sciences or life sciences related fields. It's a fact that there are many projects running around these disciplines, but citizen science is not limited in these disciplines. And most importantly, citizen science is not about the scientific field to which we're referring necessarily, but it's about the tools that it is providing us with. All these methodologies of sharing data, of collecting and sharing and analyzing data, of collaborating with each other, web collaborative tools, and of coordinating and disseminating our actions. So we could say, to conclude, that citizen science is a global form of science, meaning that it has the potential to benefit communities on a local and a global level as well. As we talk, however, about beautiful local communities, and as we have the chance to meet each other in this wonderful local community of our city, I think that citizen science and the tool that it is bringing can coordinate all these small initiatives that are being taken, all these initiatives that maybe many teachers take with their classrooms and they are never communicated, or that two remote schools may take the same initiative, the same social initiative. So through the tools that citizen science is providing, they can collaborate with each other and increase their impact. So I think that it is worth trying to use to discover and to use these tools of citizen science. And I propose that we start introducing them to the very core of our communities, but also to the future of our communities, which is our schools. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was so much in time. I'm pretty impressed.
Me too.
I think we would like to open up the stage for any kind of questions. I'm gonna run to you.
My name is Sofia Kouzouli. I'm a teacher of English in a Greek primary school. I would like just to contribute to our discussion that digital citizenship is not official in our curriculum, but we try to include it in what we do with children. So there is a lovely material in the European Council site about how we can involve our students with all this. Every year there is, the past years there is, we celebrate a day, there's a special day for this, and we try to involve children. This year, 2018, sorry, it will be celebrated on the 6th of February. So what you just said, I think, is amazing. We have to, teachers care, it's all about active learning, and we motivate children by involving them in these kind of activities. So I think we should be involved in this as much as we can. That's all.
For me, it's very interesting. And actually, which is the name of the platform? Sorry, that you mentioned.
It's the official site of the European Council for Education. There is the Teachers' Corner there. And there is lovely material. There is for primary education and then for secondary education. And there in Greece there have been made some videos that about the digital citizenship, and we can you can have a look at them. It's really, they're really enjoyable and informative at the same time.
Thank you very much. For me, it's a question, it's not at all a question of motivation of the teachers, as you said. It's just a question of communicating to each other and coordinating with each other. I think this is a problem that we are facing as a society more locally as well. It's something that we miss, some interconnectivity with each other. And this can be facilitated through technology at that point. Yeah.
There are collaborative platforms. Thank you. There are collaborative platforms like eTwinning where we connect with each other, teachers connect with each other, and we work on certain projects, and we try to involve digital citizenship as much as we can there. And networking and all these collaborative platforms are so helpful for us teachers because we can share things with people with whom we have the same interest, and we work into making classrooms more friendly so that children and our pupils can get as much learning, active learning, as they can, so that they can become active citizens, concerned citizens, and responsible citizens.
Thank you very much.
Here's another question.
At the beginning of your talk, it sounded a bit like, and this is a bit more harsh than I mean it, because I'm totally convinced that this is a great idea and that both parties will get something out of it. But it sounded a bit like the externalization of some of the work that originally or usually the reachers would have to do themselves, you know? Like, so this aspect of externalization. And then if you look at from the other side, who's doing the work in this case and profiting from it, obviously it's great. It's the kids, it's a teacher, they have to organize it in this respect. So I thought that one should probably ask them that what they are interested in. That's also part of what you said. Like you should go to the kids and ask them, hey, what is it that you want to find out? What is important for you? I mean, in social sciences, I think there would be a lot of stuff if you actively talk to them where they could talk in all directions. You don't know, you have to ask them, yeah? It could be anything. So I think the real challenge would be then to match the right kind of research project with the interests of kids locally. Because if you can't do that, then there will be no connection. Either you enforce a certain thing on a community, or yeah, it just won't happen because it won't get used. What's your feeling about this? How to do that?
As you said, ideally, it could be either an existing research project that could fit the students' interests, or that's why I actually wanted to scale it up. So I started by teachers involving their classrooms in existing projects that maybe another teacher has initiated or a research team has initiated. And then it was all this aspect of critical thinking and of genuine questions coming from the students as a second step. And as a third step, we could talk about classrooms and designing their own research projects. It's just that I see that it's quite far, like 3 steps far. Of course, it would be ideal. And also, for me, there are 2 tricky points at this. I would always like, ideally, a scientist or a person who is expert on the field. In the organization that I referred before, Saventurier, it's not necessarily a university professor who goes into classrooms. It can be a PhD student, also enriching his or her experience with children and everything. But I think that we need also a researcher both to help the teacher when he or she cannot handle the questions of the students, and also to introduce the scientific way of thinking, scientific methodology, how to use properly, how to analyze and read data, for example, properly, because there are dangers in it. And then with regards to the externalization, if I understood well, the issue is having free hands of labor in science, which will be the students instead of the teachers, of the researchers. This is a big issue in general in citizen science, which is not resolved, so I don't think I have an answer. For me, it's just making sure that you have a win-win. I'm happy if I did so.
Okay, here's another question.
Yes, please.
Hello. My question is, do you know a project called Foldit?
Yes. Cool. It was part of my presentation and it was excluded in the end.
Okay. Also, yeah, I did some research on crowdsourcing. There are quite a lot of cases where scientists crowdsourced things to the public. It's not for kids, but maybe there are some ideas there on how to get feedback on what they want to research, as you said. Not just for kids, but for adults too. Maybe some local communities have certain problems they would like answers on. So there are quite a lot of case studies if you look for crowdsourcing, where people actually said, hey, we want to do that. Or they got they gave feedback to their organizations on what they want to do next, you know, like strategy and stuff like that. So maybe you can be inspired from case studies that talk about crowdsourcing.
But what about Foldit with regards to that?
There was no question, I'm just asking if you know.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Crowdsourcing, like the interests with regards to this kind of project could be ideal. Any other question?
So,
if there is no more question,
I can't see so many more questions.
Okay. So I would just like to make a keynote. I know that it's not used to do it, but I would just like to say that I would like to devote or dedicate, I'm not sure which is the right verb to use, this talk to a very beloved person who inspired me on such topics in the past and who is in the hospital at the moment, and I wish him all the best. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.